All right, what we're going to be talking about today is creating mind, body, spirit alignment and really becoming the conscious creator of your reality. And so we're going to really touch on these three big points, which is mind, body, and spirit. And then I'm going to tie them all together into how that can actually help you become the conscious creator of your reality. And so if you've watched the last few episodes of this Wednesday School of Consciousness class, you would have seen that we talked about regulating the nervous system, right? Which is really about the body aspect of it, right? When we regulate the nervous system, we're reducing the stress and anxiety in our body and we're creating alignment in our body, right? And then the second thing that we talked about a couple of weeks ago was reprogramming the subconscious mind, right? So this is about changing our belief systems and changing our thinking. And this is really about creating alignment in the mind. And then last week we spoke about our emotions, right? How to process and manage our emotions. And I believe that the emotional self is really quite tied in with the spiritual self, right? I think that our emotions are our direct link to our spiritual self, right? So as an example of this, if you're in an emotion of like anger or fear or shame or guilt, there's a real darkness about that, right? I'm sure you guys understand that. If you've experienced that feeling of like guilt and shame and fear, I'm sure we've all experienced it. It's normal to experience it, by the way. But if you start to tune into that energy, that emotion, you can tell there's a real darkness to it, right? Whereas when you're in feelings of like courage or trust or optimism, or love or peace, right? There's a real lightness about that, right? So our emotions are kind of like the doorway into our spiritual self. And when we start to become more connected to our emotions, it's really like we open up the door to our spirit, right? And it's weird actually that in our society, people have this weird idea of emotions, like you shouldn't show your emotions, you shouldn't talk about your emotions. Like it's almost like we're trying to, as a society, suppress our emotional self. And what I think happens when you do that is that you're actually suppressing your spiritual self, and you're really like shutting the door on a whole aspect of yourself. And if you do that, right, it's going to be hard for you to find real alignment in your life. So you've got to cover all the three aspects. You've got to cover the mind, the body, and the spirit. So you've got to cover the body, the mind, and the emotions. And that's what we've talked about over the last 3 weeks. And I'm going to dive into each of those a little bit more today. And now the goal here is really to become the conscious creator of your reality. And I feel like well, I don't feel like it, I know when you tick those 3 boxes, mind, body, spirit, you become a lot more conscious, which allows you to really start to consciously create your reality. You start to tune into this fact that you can consciously create the experiences that you're having, right? And for me, it's a fact, it's a truth, it's a knowing, it's not an idea, it's not a woo-woo spiritual thing. Oh, let's consciously create our reality. It's an absolute fact that if you can get your mind straight, right, you get your body good, and you essentially learn how to deal with your emotions, you can easily create your reality, easily, right? Now, one of the problems people have is they like blame others, or they give their power away to others. But mind, body, spirit, these are all internal things, right? So we have to do the inner work, right? Our mind, our body, and our spirit, right? We take responsibility for those aspects of ourself internally, right? And we can then create our external reality from the inside out, right? If you're living a life where you're constantly looking outside and you're giving your power away, you're blaming others, you're complaining things, you're saying, I can't do it because there's this, or I can't do it because of that, you're going to fail, right? You're just absolutely going to fail. So the key to success here is taking full accountability for yourself, right? And that's what we're going to talk about today. And if you follow my work, and if you're participating in in my coaching program, or you're watching the videos on YouTube or anything like that, you got to understand that it's really about taking ownership of yourself, right? Taking responsibility for yourself, right? Being committed to creating the life that you want. If you're not even committed to creating the life that you want to create, how do you expect to succeed? Like I'm training for a triathlon right now. If I don't commit to training, I'm gonna do a shit time. I'm gonna probably lose. Like I'm gonna fail, right? I could probably still complete the triathlon even if I didn't train because I'm a 31-year-old male and I'm quite fit and healthy. So I could probably do it even if I didn't train. But I would get a shit time and I'd probably have a bad experience and I would probably consider it a failure because I wouldn't have done my best, right? And so I have to be committed to the training, right? And when I'm committed to the training, I can do better and I can do the best, right? And now this is crazy that people think about their life and they don't commit to the life that they actually want. Like I'm just talking about a triathlon, but if you have your life and you have a vision in your head of like what kind of life you want to live and you're not committed to that life, then what the fuck are you doing? Like really, like what are you doing? So you have to become committed, right, to this process of creating the life that you want. And that means you have to take responsibility for yourself and your life, right? I want you to answer this question for me, right? Who is responsible for what you achieve in your life? Who is responsible for what you achieve in your life? You can write that question down if you like and think about it. Who is responsible for what you achieve in your life? Some people might say, oh, it's the government, oh, it's the school, oh, it's my parents. I'm sure with a little bit of honesty, you realize that it's just you. The only one who's responsible for what you experience is you. And if you start to say something else, you have to understand that that is you giving your power away. Or it's you blaming someone, saying, oh, it's their fault that I'm not like this. It's the corporations, man. It's the system. It's set up for failure. Okay. I was actually like that once upon a time, right? I was like that when I was kind of like a teenager, right? I was rebellious and I really hated the system and I hated the government and I hated the corporations and I hated the rich people. And I was like, man, these rich people, rah, rah, rah. You know what I achieved in my life at that point? Fuck all, right? Nothing. I was like just not a good person, right? And so once I started to take responsibility for myself and realize that I'm the only one that is responsible for the things that I experience in my life, that's when I actually started to create a good life for myself, right? So we have some values at Mind Launch, my company, right? One is trust, right? You have to learn how to trust yourself, right? And if you don't trust yourself now, you've got to go on that journey of trust, right? And a big part of trust is openness and honesty, right? You've got to have openness and honesty with yourself. You've got to tell the truth. You've got to be truthful to yourself. And when you develop that, that is when you have trust, right? And trust is the beginning of all good relationships, including the relationship that you have with yourself, right? So trust is number one, right? Then we have commitment, right? Like I said before, if you can't commit to the life that you want, you're fucked. So you have to commit to the life that you want, and you have to commit to yourself and being the best version of yourself, right? And that's like a super awesome thing. Like, who would not want to be the best version of themselves? Like, if you had a choice to live as the best version of yourself or the worst version of yourself, or even let's say a third choice of just be the average version of yourself, like who are you going to be? Right? I don't know about you guys, but I'm going to choose that I want to be the best version of myself. I don't want to be just the average version of myself, and I definitely don't want to be the worst version of myself. I want to be the best version of myself. So I have to commit to that. Then third, responsibility. I need to take responsibility for that, right? I need to do what I need to do. Take full responsibility, radical responsibility, right? You guys have probably heard me talk about that. Radical responsibility it means it's radical. Like it's really radical. I don't blame anyone for anything. It's all my fault, right? And this is a mindset. I'm not just telling you guys to have this mindset. I'm not trying to guilt anyone. I'm saying I use this on myself. I don't blame anyone for anything. And if I do, I'll try to catch myself quickly and change that because I understand that that's a disempowering thing to blame someone else. Take full responsibility for myself. And finally, number four, the fourth value is discipline, right? Discipline creates freedom, right? Discipline creates freedom. Most people think, oh, I don't want to be disciplined because it's hard work, right? Discipline creates freedom. The paradox is the hard work leads to the freedom, right? And it doesn't always need to be hard as well. Discipline essentially over time turns into a sense of devotion, right? So you'd be disciplined in the beginning, you kind of put the work in, you be consistent, you develop that habit or that quality or that trait. And over time, it turns into a devotion. You just become devoted, right? So it loops back into this idea of commitment, right? And that's a beautiful thing. And if you want to be the best version of yourself, you need to be disciplined, right? It's just it's a fact. It's just common sense, right? Now, this doesn't mean that you need to be like hardcore, like every day, like crazy, like do everything every day, wake up at 4 a.m. and, run 10Ks and then, sit and do an hour of meditation and then, work for like 12 hours straight. That's not what I'm talking about with discipline, right? It's a little bit more relaxed than that, right? You can find your own pace with discipline, right? But it's really just about showing up consistently, right? That's the important thing. And it's really like consistency over intensity, right? Progress over perfection. When I talk about discipline, I'm not saying you need to be perfect like every single day for the rest of your life, because that's just not going to happen, right? Because you're just a human, right? But it's about consistency over a long period of time. And so we want to zoom out as well, right? I shared a story recently, which was actually like a bit of a brain fart for me. I just kind of had this idea come up as I was talking in one of my classes recently. And when I first started meditation back in 2011 or 2012, whenever it was, I was 17 years old. I read this blog post and it basically told me that if I start doing meditation as like a 17-year-old, 18-year-old kid, then in 6 or 7 years, so by the time I was 25, I would be a superhuman. And I've never actually acknowledged that. And then I just randomly thought about it recently, and I was like, as a 17-year-old kid, I was thinking 8 years into the future, right? And I thought, well, that's actually pretty cool. Like, I wasn't expecting an overnight change when I was 17, right? I had the mindset of like, cool, 8 years down the track, I'm gonna be dialed, I'm gonna be locked in, I'm gonna be a superhuman in 8 years' time. And so I just wanted to share this story because most people think so short term. It's like, I need to get fixed tomorrow. Give me the pill now. I want to be good by this afternoon, right? Or whatever the fuck people do, right? I'm going to encourage you to develop a bigger mindset. Like, think more long term, right? My coaching program is 6 months, right? And even some people think, oh, 6 months, that's a bit long, right? But I'm like, once you come into the program, I'm telling you, okay, cool. Now think 6 years, right? Now think 6 years into the future, right? Because with a bigger time horizon, you can achieve a lot more, right? Most people, what's that saying? There's a saying, it's not mine, but it's someone says it's like, most people underestimate what they can, or most people overestimate what they can do in a year and underestimate what they can do in 10 years, right? So zoom out a little bit, right? You don't need to have it all right now. Develop a bit of patience, develop a bigger mindset. Lessons from my 17-year-old self. And so this is what I've been talking about now, these values, right? It's kind of touching on this mindset, right? Having this mindset, right? The mind alignment, having a good values and good belief systems and a good attitude and a good perspective on how you look at things, right? That's important. That's the mind. That's why it's important to work on your mindset and self-development. And also, everything that you experience externally is just a mirror for what's going on internally. So if you're not experiencing the life externally that you want, take responsibility for yourself, realize what you're seeing is just something that's coming through your own perspective. So it's really, you change your perspective, you change what you see, right? When you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change, right? That's all up here in the mind. So we've got to find that mind alignment, right? Secondly, I think something that I'm really big on is mind-body connection, right? So regulating the nervous system, right? Learning how to like control your stress, essentially, right? Stress is not bad, right? Stress is not bad if it's controlled, if you know how to manage it. I actually read something recently where they did this study on a group of people, and it was on the effects of stress. And there was a really interesting thing where people who believed that stress was bad had worse outcomes than people who didn't believe that stress was bad, even though the people who did believe stress was bad had higher stress levels. So, no, sorry, the people who didn't believe that stress was bad, they had higher stress levels. So there's a group of people who are stressed out, but believing that stress isn't bad. They had better health outcomes than the people who had low stress, but believed stress was bad. Right, so that's a mindset thing. But I do believe it's important to learn how to regulate and control your stress levels, right? Most successful people are very good at that, whether it's athletes or business people, or, you know, probably people who have been married for a long time and had kids, right? It's stressful, right? So you need to learn how to deal with your stress and not let your stress take over, right? And I believe that that is about being connected to your body and understanding how to like regulate yourself, right? And how to regulate yourself essentially means to just, how do we stay calm, right? How can we be stressed and calm at the same time? I believe you can, right? I think I live my life like that. I'm a very highly strung person, right? Like high stress, I operate at a high stress level. I'm constantly pushing the boundaries, but at the same time, I'm quite calm, right? I'm quite aware of my body and like what's going on. And if I need to rest, I'll rest and I'll slow down, right? If I need to eat some food so I can bring myself in, like sometimes eating food regulates your nervous system, right? So I teach a lot of stuff around meditation, mindfulness, these kinds of things. However, sometimes you could just have a good meal that will bring your stress levels down, right? So you know, it's kind of complex and nuanced, but it's about self-awareness, which is really key. Now, another aspect of this is learning how to manage your emotions, right? So now we're moving into this spiritual. We've talked about the mind, we've talked about the body, right? But also, so another one with the body as well, just quickly, it's like being healthy, like just generally just be healthy, right? I'm not a health expert. I am not a PT. I'm not a nutritionist. I don't have any qualifications like that. I'm a meditation teacher, right? That's my qualification, mindfulness meditation, right? But people think mindfulness meditation is only in the mind. It's not, right? I can tell you after 15 years of meditation, you become extremely connected to your body as well, right? Meditation mindfulness is a great practice for developing a strong mind-body connection and also spiritual connection, right? But again, with the body, are you healthy? And you know, you don't need an expert to answer that question. You can answer that question for yourself. Are you healthy? Yes or no? Or could you be healthier? Yes or no? Taking care of your health is so important, right? I'm not going to give you any specific advice about that because I'm not qualified to do that. But you guys are smart, right? Are you healthy? Yes or no? What could you do to become healthier, right? You know the answers to that. I don't need to tell you. We all know what we could do to become healthier, right? And there's a plethora of information on the internet about how to become healthy, right? Use ChatGPT. I use ChatGPT. ChatGPT is like my personal trainer. I use ChatGPT. I said, hey, I want to be healthier. I want this kind of body. You know, I'm doing this kind of training. What do you recommend for me? What should I eat on a day-to-day basis? How much should I train? What should I be doing for rest and recovery? I ask ChatGPT those questions and it just tells me. It's like an automated personal trainer, right? And nutritionist. I asked ChatGPT last night. I said, what blind spots do I have that I might not be aware of? And it was like, you need a more robust diet. You eat like you don't eat good enough. Like you're just eating too like you know your diet's not that great. And I was like, oh fuck, all right. And it gave me some suggestions, right? I should eat more fruits and maybe some different like fibrous stuff and stuff like that for more nutrients. I just eat like eggs and steak and fruit and butter and bread. That's really what I eat. Eggs and I have eggs and butter and bread for brekkie, and then I'll generally have some fruit during the day, and then I'll have maybe like some chicken and rice or steak and rice. And then I'll probably have like a couple of protein shakes. Like that's literally my diet. It's like really simple. So ChatGPT told me to eat some more fruit and veggies. But anyway, I'm digressing. Mind, body, right? Are you healthy? Could you be healthier, right? If you could be healthier, then get healthier, right? And then finally, spirit, right? So I was talking about stress before. With stress, there's a few different types of stress, right? You can have mental stress, right, which is the mind. You can have physiological stress, which is more like the body, right? You can also have environmental stress, So stress from the environment, your workplace, your home, etc. But you can also have emotional stress, right? And I believe that this is one of the things that people really struggle with. It's like their emotional stress. So you get angry, you get frustrated, you get emotionally triggered, you get reactive, you get anxious, you get afraid, right? You feel guilty, you feel ashamed. All of this like darkness that I was talking about before, that has a direct impact on how you feel in your body, right? Dr. Joe Dispenza talks about emotion being energy in motion, energy in motion, emotion. And I just, ask yourself this question. When I feel angry, how does that feel in my body? Right? It's like, it's kind of charged. It's kind of like, it's a bit stressed. It's like like a pretty hard, tense energy. When I feel fearful or anxious, how does that feel in my body? When I feel ashamed or humiliated, how does that feel in my body? It's really like, depressed and kind of, down, disempowered. Same with guilty. It's like, oh, I shouldn't have done that. Right. And you feel like a bit down. Right. Now, when you feel courageous, when you do something that's like hard and you have courage, boom, how do you feel? You feel a bit more lifted up. Right. You feel it. You feel it in your body. I feel more empowered now. And if you're feeling optimistic, cool, I feel good, I feel positive, let's go, right? You feel different in your body. Now you feel in love, right? You're with your partner or something like that, you're feeling in love, like, oh my God, my heart's open, I feel really beautiful. I'm getting tingles just thinking about it, right? And peaceful. I'm totally calm. I feel it in my body, right? And so this is why we have to have that spiritual alignment as well, right? We need to know how to control our emotions and to maintain a specific, like a certain emotional state. And if we go out of that emotional state, we need to learn how to bring ourselves back, right? So some people get anxious. And a lot of people I work with get anxious, right? Afraid, that kind of stuff, right? Or sometimes frustrated, emotion, like angry, some bit reactive. And that's okay. It's not bad that you're feeling that, but we've got to really learn how to come back up into a more neutral, balanced state, right? Calm, right? That's important, right? Um, there's an amazing book by a guy called David Hawkins called Power versus Force, where he gives a whole levels of consciousness that humans experience. It's extremely profound. You've probably heard me talk about it before, if you're in my coaching programs or maybe even in my YouTube videos. It's a very profound thing. If you haven't already looked it up, go and look it up. Levels of Consciousness by David Hawkins, right? And he talks about these different emotional scale, right? And at the top, you've got enlightenment and love and peace, right? And at the bottom, you've got the shame and the guilt and all that kind of stuff. And he says that the bridge towards the power, a state of being in power, is courage. You've got to have courage. So if you feel fearful, right, you've got to have the courage to take the action anyway, right? If you feel angry or frustrated, you might need to have the courage to be vulnerable and admit that something's wrong, right? Or if you feel like guilty about something, you might need to have the courage to just go, have I actually done anything wrong? No, I haven't actually done anything wrong. I don't need to feel guilty, and just throw that one away, right? So yeah, that's how you create this spiritual alignment. It's by learning how to manage and process your emotions. So again, mind, body, spirit. In the mind, we're really working on our mindset. We're developing a strong set of values and new belief systems, right? Then secondly, in our body, we're learning how to regulate our nervous system, control our stress, and just generally be healthy. And then finally, the spiritual aspect is really about learning how to manage and process our emotions, right? And that is so, so important, right? And so that is how you get yourself into mind, body, spirit alignment. Now, obviously, this is a short talk about this, right? There's a lot of work that you can do to dive into each one of these aspects. And this is exactly what we do in the coaching program, right? So if you guys here live with me on this call, we're working on all of these things within the program, right? On a week-to-week basis. Plenty of content there about how do we get a good mindset, right? How do we bring our nervous system into regulation, right? What habits, what routines can we start to be disciplined with? Can we commit ourselves to have that accountability for ourselves, right? And then there's a lot of work around healing and emotional regulation as well, because that is so important. If you're being triggered by the external world, good. It's trying to help you learn how to manage your emotions better. When you look at it from that perspective, that's when everything will change, right? That's when you'll start to move towards mind, body, spirit alignment, And that is when you become the conscious creator of your reality, right? Because once you're conscious of yourself, your mind, your body, your spirit, then you move out of this victim state where it's like you're blaming everyone else and, oh, it's the government, or it's, oh, I can't be healthy. Oh, it's so hard to be disciplined, right? Once you develop alignment, mind, body, spirit, and you become conscious of yourself, that's when you move into this creator mentality, right? You're moving into an empowered state where you go, you know what, I can consciously create my reality, right? And obviously, you guys know we've got a lot of work on that in the program as well, where you get clear on what do I actually want, right? You create a vision for the future, right? Get more connected to yourself, and then you go about the journey of actually creating that. And really, that is that's my viewpoint on it. That's my holistic perspective on how to become a conscious creator of your reality. So, with that being said, I think we'll wrap up this call. If you're watching the YouTube video and you'd like some help with this stuff, you can go to my website. You can message me on Instagram. There's a free training. I'll put the links below the video. If you want to work with me, you can easily find how to do that. You can join the program. And other than that, I'll see you guys next week in the next video.